There has been a lot of free agent signings so far, and that will only continue as we progress further and further into the 2024 offseason. Some teams have went all in during the free agency period and are hoping the money they spent will translate to more wins during the 2024 regular season. As you can see by the title of today's video, we will be grading the biggest NFL free agent signings so far. Obviously, we can't get to every signing, but we will be grading a lot of big signings, and there will be a lot of grades at the end shown on screen too. Grades for these signings will be based on contract value relative to the player's projected production, where the franchise currently is, and what the player can bring to their new team. We all know why we're here, so let's dive right in. The first team we are going to discuss in today's video is the Carolina Panthers and their acquisitions of guards Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. Bryce Young's rookie year was about as disastrous as anyone could have imagined, as they finished the year with a 2-15 record and finished 31st in points per game offensively. They averaged 13.9 points per game as a team and were shut out in their final 2 games of the year. As we know, Carolina does not have their first round pick due to the trade up to go get Bryce Young, and simply put, they're in a dangerous situation here with Bryce because they need to do everything in their power to ensure he's not a complete flop and that they didn't set the franchise back several years in the process. Bryce is also a very unique quarterback given he is 5'10", and there was a lot of discussion in the pre-draft process around his size. I personally love both signings here because I think for the majority of Bryce Young's career, the importance of offensive line play with him under center will be the interior offensive line rather than the exterior. If he has somebody like Dexter Lawrence at defensive tackle rushing directly at him, it's over. Granted, you can say that about a lot of other quarterbacks too, but the point is, Dexter is 6'4", 340 pounds, and if he gets through with Bryce's size, given he is 5'10", the best case scenario is a player is open in the flats or the pass will be simply thrown away. Interior offensive line help was what the Panthers needed most, and I'm glad they addressed it, and in a big way. I know some people were floored at the $100 million contract for Robert Hunt, but you have to do everything you can to protect Bryce, and I also don't mind the value because when you look at the Panthers roster, is there anybody they will not be able to pay simply because they gave Robert Hunt this big of a contract? No. That idea of not being able to pay players due to large free agent signings will come up for other teams in today's video, but by signing these two guys, we've already seen more commitment from the Panthers and Bryce Young in year 2 than we really saw in all of year 1. They also traded for Deontay Johnson, and if Carolina can get a receiver with pick 33 that's a taller receiver, I'm really going to like what 2024 will mean for them. Will they go 11-6 and make the playoffs? No, probably not, but I like where this team's head is at, and we give the dual guard signings an A grade. I start every day off by going to the gym early, gotta get the workout out of the way, and one of my essentials at the gym are of course headphones, but what recently has become a part of my gym routine as well is using the Fitbod app. Fitbod is extremely personalized and adapts as you progress, and my favorite thing about the Fitbod app is how easy it is to use and record your most recent workouts. It's like having your own personal trainer, but better. It's cheaper, you can work out anywhere with or without equipment, and it's easy to build a custom fitness plan that works for you. You can generate workouts based on your goals, what equipment you have, how much time you have to work out, and more. Even within your gym profile, you can find several options to customize Fitbod to your unique fitness preference. Add Fitbod to your workout essentials. Join Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan, and you can even get 25% off your subscription or try the app free at fitbod.me/analysis. That's fitbod.me/analysis. And a big thank you to Fitbod for sponsoring today's video. Next up is the Raiders signings of Gardner Minshew and Christian Wilkins. We will start with the Gardner signing, and I don't think there's a whole lot to dislike about this deal for both sides. Gardner came in and started 13 games for the Colts in 2023, and technically, yes, he made the Pro Bowl, but he is at minimum a great bridge quarterback. At minimum, that is. I was never a big advocate of having the Raiders head into 2024 with Aiden O'Connell as their starting quarterback, and I am glad they addressed this position in free agency. I don't think Gardner will necessarily lead this team to a lot of success per se, but I do think he is a better option than AOC. It's hard to be upset about an upgrade at the position, and the Raiders still managed to go 8-9 last year with what I would say was pretty bad quarterback play. Jimmy was, well, a disaster, and I think Las Vegas will zag as every other team zigs and try and not recreate what the Titans did during the 2019 through 2021 period, but be physical as hell, beat teams in the trenches, and try and control the game as much as they can up front. Translation, they will be a pain in the ass to play. Now, for the Christian Wilkins signing, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think this was an overpay for who he is as a player. I know that may not seem like a great start to the Wilkins part of the video, but I love this signing for the Raiders because, like we mentioned with the Panthers, are the Raiders not going to be able to afford anybody due to this? No, and not only that, but we now have a defensive line with Wilkins, Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz, who quietly tacked on 8 sacks last year, and 2023 first-rounder Tyree Wilson. The projection of Tyree Wilson is another 3 or 4 minute discussion on its own, but the point is having Crosby, Wilkins, and Kuntz be good options along the defensive line is huge for this team. We often talk about quarterbacks being set up to succeed with weapons around them, but the same goes for pass rush too. Giving Max Crosby a legitimate defensive tackle for the next few years is big for the silver and black. I'm not worried about the money here because it's not like they have a quarterback who needs paid next offseason and they simply can't get it done. When you factor the Minshew and Wilkins signings in, I think this is a solid A grade. Next up is the Titans Hall of Free Agents, and the first one we are going to discuss is Calvin Ridley. Calvin signed a 4-year, $92 million contract with Tennessee, and what needs to be remembered here, of course, is the guarantees. Whenever this news was broke, I tweeted that I liked this signing, and I had some replies that basically said, "You're an idiot, how could you like this overpay for the player Ridley is?" Which I understand, by the way. But I like the Ridley signing because with the addition of Calvin and already having DeAndre Hopkins on the roster, I think this signifies that Joe Alt will probably be, or at least should be, a Titan in 2024. Not only that, but it also doesn't require Tennessee to draft a receiver at pick 7, and with as loaded of a class as it is, they can take a receiver in round 2. Also, like we said with the Raiders and paying Christian Wilkins, Tennessee's roster isn't that good, and they don't jeopardize not signing anybody long-term due to this contract. You also have to factor in that Tennessee has to pay more because, again, they're not very good. I really liked the Lloyd Cushenberry signing, and for as bad as the Titans' offensive line was in 2023, if they get Joe Alt at 7, then the left side of this offensive line for this team looks set for the next 3 or 4 years. At minimum, by the way. Admittedly, I wasn't a huge fan of the Tony Pollard signing as I like Tajay Spears quite a bit, and I didn't like giving a running back who I don't think is very good a $21 million contract, and granted they can escape the contract before all 3 years are up, but you get the point. I personally would have preferred another running back in the draft and have a 2 running back on a rookie contract deal rather than paying one, and paying one pretty well at that, but I guess if there is a positive spin, it's that Ran Carthon is doing everything he can to help out Will Levis. I would give the Ridley grade a B+, the Cushenberry signing an A+, especially for the value, and the Tony Pollard signing a C-. One of my favorite signings in the entire free agency class was the Texans bringing in pass rusher Danielle Hunter. Obviously, you can look at the stats from 2023 and realize Danielle had a pretty good year, and he did. For starters, he had 16.5 sacks, which was a career high, and in addition to that, he had 23 tackles for a loss, which led the league, and also had 4 forced fumbles. Danielle is a problem for opposing offenses, and that's a pretty big understatement. He had 2 seasons shortened due to injury as he missed the entire 2020 season and only played in 7 games in 2021, but over the last 2 years he's been named a Pro Bowler twice and has accumulated 27 sacks. I don't just love this signing because Houston brought in a good player, hell, great player. I love this signing because they brought in a great player on a great deal for both Danielle and the team, and now the Texans have a great pass rushing duo of Will Anderson and, of course, Danielle. Hunter finished 10th in pressures in 2023 as he had 80 pressures for the Vikings, and the Vikings pass rush outside of Hunter in 2023 was not very good. It was a lot of Brian Flores scheming players open through pass rushing lanes, and Danielle was very much a lone wolf in this aspect. Houston already has a pass rusher in Will Anderson who is very gifted, and a player who I, and a lot of others for that matter, think will be a double-digit sack guy for a while, and a guy who will be the face of this defense for a long time. Getting a second guy to get after the quarterback, who is still in his 20s by the way, is a great move no matter how you slice it. Houston traded back with the Vikings in the draft, and I think there's a chance they get the big fella from Texas, T'Vondre Sweat, to play defensive tackle and help shore up the Texans' interior defensive line. This is a bonus, but Daniil went to high school in Katy, Texas, which is about 30 miles from NRG Stadium. All in all, this was a phenomenal move, and I really look forward to seeing Daniil and Will Anderson get after quarterbacks in 2024. Oh yeah, and they also signed Azeez Al-Shaair and Denico Autry, both from the Titans, and for a team that's looking to take the next step in 2024, they are off to a tremendous start, an A+ grade. Next up is the Jags, and they will be graded favorably under one stipulation. I tweeted this shortly after the Gabe Davis signing happened, but what happens next for Jacksonville is huge because of where we are in the Trevor Lawrence timeline. If they do not address receiver in the first 2 rounds of the 2024 draft, and I would prefer them to draft a receiver in the first round and get Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU if he's available, then this grade takes a hit. Gabe Davis is a fine number 2 receiver. Gabe Davis is not a bona fide number 1 receiver that makes the team significantly better just by his presence alone, and to at least be fair to the signing, that is how Jacksonville paid him, as a solid number 2. We're at a point where it's critical for Trevor Lawrence to get as much help as he can so we can determine what type of contract extension he's worth. Aside from the Gabe signing, which to me is dependent on them getting Trevor more help, I can't emphasize enough how much I love the Eric Armstead signing and the Mitch Moore signing up front. Mitch isn't going to play there for 6 or 7 years, but he is an upgrade and he is a band-aid for the moment, which allows the Jags more time before they truly need to invest in the center position long term. And by the way, I would welcome the idea of Jacksonville drafting Jackson Powers Johnson in the first round and the best receiver in the second round. But the draft needs to be focused on helping your franchise quarterback out. Now, having guys like Armstead, Josh Allen, and Trayvon Walker get after the quarterback is good, and I like that trio a lot. I even like the Gabe Davis signing, assuming they address receiver in the first few rounds of the 2024 draft. Overall, we give this a B+ grade because I don't think Darnell Savage is a good player, and I did not particularly like that signing. To Chicago to discuss the signings they made and the Keenan Allen trade. I think there is a difference between paying DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard, especially in each of the team's situations, and I like the move of bringing in Swift in the Bears' case. I know Ryan Poles takes some heat online for trading a second-round pick for Chase Claypool, and if you were not aware, no GM in the history of the NFL has ever made a mistake before that, but aside from that, I have loved what Ryan Poles has done in preparation of drafting Caleb Williams number 1 overall. I've said before that I felt bad for the situation Justin Fields was drafted in, as he was set up to fail from the beginning. Whether it was a coach and GM on the way out the door, no supporting cast, or you name it, this was a bad situation. But Caleb Williams will walk into a team that has a good running back, one of the best receiver duos in football in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and honestly the Gerald Everett signing was a little under the radar, and I like that for Chicago too, for what it is of course. From the minute Justin Fields was drafted, it was pretty much a set of scenarios of exactly what not to do when building around a young quarterback, and the Bears have done the opposite this time around. This is also a defense that allowed just 15.5 points per game during the final 6 games of 2023, and added a new starter at safety in Kevin Byard. This team is a sleeper heading into 2024. They will be a problem as long as they don't lose games by committing silly turnovers offensively. They can and will compete with anybody. Ryan Poles had a great first week, and the start to this offseason earns them an A+. Now to another team in the NFC North, we go to Minnesota to discuss what the Vikings have done. Not just for Minnesota, but for any team that goes out and prioritizes a backup quarterback, I am all for given how many starting quarterbacks we saw go down at some point in 2023. I like the Sam Darnold signing too because Sam has the potential to be a good bridge quarterback for the first few weeks of the 24 season, and even when the presumable rookie quarterback takes over, he will be a good backup. For any Darnold haters or non-believers, his two head coaches he had when he started for the Jets and Panthers were Adam Gase and Matt Rule, who are miles away from where Kevin O'Connell is from a head coach standpoint. Not only that, but the supporting cast Darnold will have is one of the best in the league, and is a lot better than throwing to Chosen Anderson and Chris Herndon as a rookie. I also don't think Darnold is a franchise savior, and I like this signing. Now, for Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Jonathan Gurnard, I think this part is pretty easy. The Vikings defense flashed at times in 2023, but it was not due, at least a lot of the time, to the players on the defense playing at an elite level. While Gurnard is a downgrade from Danielle Hunter, I love the Van Ginkel signing, and he quietly had over 50 pressures for the Dolphins in 2023. Not only that, but there is some familiarity with Brian Flores, as Flores was his first head coach back in 2019. The Vikings had to replace Danielle and DJ Wanham for that matter too, and I like these signings. Are they league-altering? No, but they will temporarily get the job done. I also love the Blake Cashman signing, and having him and Ivan Pace in the middle of the Vikings defense will quietly be a good linebacking duo. Minnesota improved their defense, signed a bridge quarterback, and while I was recording, made a big trade to get a second first-round pick, which I think will be to go up into the top 2 or 3 of the NFL draft to get their quarterback of the future. Oh, and they also signed Aaron Jones to a 1-year deal, and I had some people asking on Twitter when a strict Vikings video will be out, and there will be one in the near future, but I loved what they've done so far. An A grade. Now, from Minneapolis to Atlanta to discuss the Falcons signings, which of course is going to revolve around Kirk Cousins. The benefits for this signing for Atlanta are obvious. Atlanta's quarterbacks in 2023 completed just 61.7% of their passes and threw 17 touchdowns to 17 interceptions. They had a passer rating of just 80.5, and for the most part, they were bad. GM Terry Fontenot is also entering his 4th year as the team's GM, and his quarterbacks throughout his tenure have not been good. No disrespect is intended to prime Matt Ryan, but 36-year-old Matt Ryan in 2021 was not the player he was earlier in his career, and Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota in 2022 were, well, not great. We just saw how 2023 went for the Falcons at the quarterback position, and with GM Terry Fontenot entering this pivotal point, it was now or never. I wouldn't have been surprised to see Atlanta try and trade up to get a young quarterback to build around for the next 5 to 10 years, but Kirk Cousins was playing at an MVP level in 2023 before he went down. So with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson all at the skill positions, they went out and got the best option available. I don't think the contract is that big of a deal because it's not a fully guaranteed contract, and I don't want to say only, but only $100 of the $180 million of the contract are guaranteed. Not only that, but they also signed Darnell Mooney and traded for Rondale Moore, and they are doing quite literally everything they can in their power to not just win the NFC South in 2024, but to win multiple playoff games. This team is good, and they more than have taken the right steps so far. An A grade. The Pittsburgh Steelers signed Russell Wilson and traded for Justin Fields, and for the Russ signing, I don't know how this could be viewed in anything other than a positive way. Russ was signed to a 1-year deal worth a little over $1.2 million, and the reason I view this in such a positive light is because of how little money the Steelers are paying him. I think it would be egregious to think Russ is going to play at an elite level or that he's going to throw for 40 touchdowns next year, but when you can sign a player like this for that little value due to another team taking on his previous contract, I am all for it every single time. Due to the value, I don't know how you could give the Russ signing anything less than an A, and I personally would give it an A+. Now, to be clear, if we were talking about a Kirk Cousins type contract for Russ, then it would be a completely different discussion, but we're not. I view the Justin Fields trade in a similar light because they gave up a 6th round pick for a backup quarterback, and if he pans out and plays 51% of the snaps in 2024, it becomes a 4th round pick. Even if Justin never sees the field, prioritizing a backup quarterback in today's era, to me at least, is essential. You are only as good as your backup quarterback, and while I don't think Justin Fields is a star, and evidently the rest of the league doesn't either, I would take him as my backup quarterback in a minute. We've seen guys like Marcus Mariota and Tyrod Taylor get $6 million per year this offseason because teams aren't messing around with their backup quarterback. I thought the Steelers slightly overpaid for Patrick Queen, but even with that signing, the team can get out of it in 1 year, as only $13.8 of the $41 million in that contract are guaranteed. Now, there are several other teams and free agent grades on the screen, and I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as well as comment your grades for free agency so far. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.